Right, so I'm moving on to the right hand now. I've downloaded all the parts from the InMoov.fr website. I've loaded them into Cura one by one and sliced them and saved all the G-code out. I've made a list here of all the parts and Cura's estimated printing times, along with some of my settings such as layer height and infill percentage. We can see that we've got a total printing time of 16 hours and 23 minutes. That is just an estimate. I expect it will take a little bit longer than that. So I'm going to get all these parts printed out and then we'll start putting the hand together. So 1 hour and 23 minutes in. It's a little difficult to see because it's moving around, but I kind of wanted to show you the tubes that run through. The little hollow tubes that run through the hand for the tendons for the fingers. The fishing line that we use for tendons runs through those. Very clever design. So this is the thumb printing out. Had a lot of trouble with this. The brims wouldn't stick to the bed, just kept lifting up. I think I've solved it by re-leveling the bed. After the thumb, I've just got 2 more fingers left to do and then we're done. So that's what I've done so far, and the thumb, like I said, is printing out now. So we've got the top cover, the finger covers, wrist large, wrist small, and I've done the index finger and the pinky. Okay, so I'm getting straight into this. I'm not going to cover this in as much detail because we looked at the left hand before, so we know how these go together now. I've filed all the edges of the parts just to clean them up a little bit. Didn't hugely need it, but just cleaned things up, made everything nice and loose. I'm not painting any of the parts this time. I've ran the bolt through here. I did run through all the large holes with an M8 drill just to clean them out, and I ran through all of these holes in here first with a 3mm drill bit and then with a 3.2mm drill bit, because we want these to be clearance holes for the 3mm filament that we're going to put in to attach the fingers. I've started gluing the thumb together. The first piece of the thumb is glued on. You see this little hole here? That's the back of the hand where the covers go on. So we have similar holes in the back of the hand, and that helped me to orientate this piece because the hole here should be on the same side as the flat edge of the thumb, with the curved edge this side being on the side without the holes, which matches up with the hand. We can see they've got the cover holes here and they're on the flat edge, and the side without the cover holes is on the curved edge of all the finger joints, so the thumb will be the same. So then that can go in there now. It's a nice and loose fitting. I'll need to run the 8mm drill through here, and I'm not sure if I've got a bolt the right length. Let's just measure that. So this bolt is 55mm. I remember before I had a bit of an issue here because when we attach the wrist we have another bolt coming through here. We need to make sure that the heads of the screws don't hit each other, so the idea is that this one gets recessed into this hole here, and we can just see in there the head of the bolt actually goes right into the hole. I may have to just open it up a little bit. It doesn't quite fit in there, so I'll just do that. So that's actually a little tricky to do because the heads on these bolts are about 13mm. These are standard M8 bolts with a cap head, and most drills, most sort of handheld drills like this, the cheap ones anyway, tend to have 10mm chucks, so the biggest drill bit you can fit in the chuck is 10mm. So I don't have a 13mm drill bit to drill that hole out. So I tried filing it a little bit with a needle file, but that was just taking forever and that wasn't really going to work. So in the end I used the Dremel with this stone attachment on it. You have to be a bit careful with that because it's a bit vicious and it does tend to chew into the plastic. I've got the head of the bolt recessing in there, and this is, like I said, a 55mm bolt, and it's if I can turn on the light, you can see it's pushed all the way up to the edge here. That's as far as in as it'll go, and the head isn't fully recessed. I thought that was going to be good enough, but it isn't, because this part of the wrist has to fit on here like that, and we need the head of this screw fully recessed in that hole. You can also see if we tried to fit a bolt, we wouldn't fit it this way, but you can see it doesn't clear it. So when the bolt is put through this way, this is the way it will go. We need to get a nut on there, and again we don't have enough clearance to get the nut on, so we've got to get this head all the way in. Now there's two ways I could do this using this 55mm bolt. I could either grind a little bit off the end of the bolt so that we can screw it in further, or I could try drilling into the plastic so the bolt actually recesses down into the plastic. That might be easier. It's a little messier, but we're going to fit these covers over here anyway, so we're not going to see anything inside there. So I might just try drilling that out. So I wouldn't really advise doing that. It's certainly not how it's designed to go together. You can see what I've done. I've drilled out a hole in there that will allow my bolt just to recess in a little bit. You have to be super careful. There's tubes running through here. These holes here, they're tubes that are running through, and they run up across here up to this finger. That's for the tendons to go through, the fishing lines that create the tendons for the fingers. And if you're using the fingers with sensors, the sensor wires will run through there. You don't really want your bolt running into those. I think I'll just about get away with that. You can now see the bolt is just running just slightly into that plastic there. The head is fully recessed in there now, and I've just checked that this part does fit. I can get a bolt through there and get this part attached. So that looks good. So with the hand part put together, I think I'll move on to the fingers. What we need to do now is break off these brims and glue together the pairs of parts. I'll do them one finger at a time so I don't lose track of which finger is which pieces go together. If you remember from last time, the easiest parts to start with are the ones with this little locating rectangle. Not only does that tell us that these two parts need to be glued together, but it also helps us align the parts to make sure they're not twisted when we stick them together. So that then leaves us with these four pieces. If you look at a complete set of these, you see there's only one that has two holes in it, like this. The other ones either have rectangular holes or a big round hole, but there's just this one that has two small holes. That is the one where it glues to the, so that was this one here, it glues onto the fingertip with the fingernail. So that will glue onto there, and we don't want to glue that one because we leave that till last, until we've run the braided fishing lines through and tied the knots off and glued them on. So we'll leave that one. We're not going to glue him, and we're not going to glue that one. So that then just leaves these two that must then go together. And we know which way round they go because we want the curved edges on the same side, so they'll glue together like that. So with the second one, we don't have the locating notch like we had in the first part, so we just have to line this up by eye. So just try and get this as straight as you can by eye. It doesn't have to be exactly perfect, long as it's fairly close. So them two parts are glued together. We're going to leave this one with the fingertip. We don't want to glue that just yet. So I'll just repeat the same process on all the other fingers. So I've organised them in these little trays so I know which parts go together. Each tray contains one finger. And because the index finger and the ring finger are very similar, I've put the index finger in a white tray so I don't get those muddled as well. So if we just look at that one, I've just done these two pieces on each finger, and I've left the fingertips for now. I will have to clean these up. It's quite time consuming to do all the fingers. I guess the next thing to do is to start drilling out the holes, but I'm going to let these dry first to make sure the glue is fully dried before I start drilling holes. What I've done next is I've drilled out all of the holes now. I've done all the parts. All of these outer holes have been drilled out to 3mm, and all the parts like this, the inner holes, so that's that part, and parts like this, they've all been drilled out at 3.2mm, and I'd already done all of these in the hand at 3.2mm. So we've got all the clearance holes and all the outer holes drilled out to the right size. I've tried each finger one at a time and given it a dry fit to make sure all the joints feel loose. I've done them one at a time so I didn't muddle up any parts. Tried one, give it a dry fit, and then put it back into these trays, and then tried the next one. And I've gone through all of them. Most of them were already quite loose, but the odd one was a little bit tight and I had to file it a little bit. I'm happy now that all the parts are a nice loose fit. So I think what I'm going to do, a little bit different to last time, probably what I should have done last time, is I'm going to run the fishing lines through now, through these holes, and I'm going to thread them through each finger part before I actually assemble the fingers. It should be a little bit easier to get the fishing lines through. So I'll get them all cut to length and we'll put them through. So the way I'm doing this is with the hand flat on the bench, I'm feeding it in from the finger end, and I'm kind of letting gravity work with me so that the cable will sort of naturally fall to the bottom. So if we push that through, it's just defied me and come out the top. It should come out the bottom, and then we can turn the hand over. It was there, just lost it. It's a little tricky to do whilst I'm holding the camera. The idea is it would come out the bottom. There, you can see it there. You can just get hold of it. Kind of doing this one-handed because I'm holding the camera, but we can then feed it through this hole here, and then it comes out at the wrist. Give that a pull. And then we just do it the other way around to the other side, so that we're again still, because we've flipped it over, we're still working on the bottom. So we just push it through the bottom of this one. So they're all in now. Coming out 2 on each finger. You need to make sure, maybe I didn't make it obvious, but I'm sure it is obvious, that one is coming out at the bottom and one's coming out at the top, and not to twist anything. Keep the top ones on the top and the bottom ones on the bottom. nothing gets tangled or pulled tight. I'm going to move on to the thumb, and then we'll kind of work through. We'll do the thumb, the index, the middle finger, the ring finger and the pinky. With the thumb, there's just a square hole there, so we can just push both cables straight through that. Sorry, I should have explained, and this is the same on all the fingers. You've got a thick part and a longer thin part here. Hopefully that's clear. This end's sort of more thick and stubby, whereas this is kind of longer and thinner. The thick end needs to be the end that attaches to the hand. The fingers kind of get smaller as they move away from the hand. And we've got the flat edge down, so we want all our curved edges to be up. So that'll just sit in there like that now, and we'll just move on to the next bit. With the thumb, we're actually straight on to the end piece. There's less pieces on the thumb. Again, curved edge up, and we just need to feed them through these two holes here. It should be nice and easy. Actually, it goes that way round, won't it? So just need to feed them through there. You just have to be really careful that the fishing line that's on the top stays on the top all the way through. So it is important which one goes in which hole here. So what I'm trying to do is to assemble each finger as I go. This one here was extremely difficult to get the 3mm printer filament through that hole there, whereas this one slipped in really easily. So I don't know how all the others are going to go, but this one was really difficult. I didn't think I was going to be able to do it. So there, I finally got them all in. They're all nice and loose, with one exception. All the fingers are nice and loose. The one exception is this joint here on the thumb. For some reason that is just a bit tight. It might be okay, but I remember before having a lot of problems with the hand if the joints weren't loose, so I think we really should take the time now to loosen that joint up somehow. I think what I'm going to do for now is just tie knots in the ends of all the cables. So I thought it was a little strange that this one was more problematic than all the others. So I've taken this blue pin out, which is why I left them long, just in case something wasn't right. I could easily remove them. And it looks like what I forgot to do was to drill this hole out here to 3.2mm. Looks like it hasn't been drilled at all. So I'll just run the drill through that, and that should solve it. So that'll explain why it was so hard to get that pin through there, and also why this joint was tight when all the others are loose. So that should be easily fixed. There, that's much better. It's really loose now. Okay, so I think the next thing is to glue all the knots. We can actually glue the knots, and we can glue the fingertips on, and we can trim down all of these blue pins now. I'm happy with that now, so they can be trimmed. I've started to screw the covers on. I drilled through the holes in the covers. I haven't done these ones yet, but I drilled through these holes in this part with a 3mm drill, and then the holes in the hand itself with a 2.5mm drill. And then I'm using these number 4 by 1/4 inch screws. So I'll do as I did before. I'll just separate this part with a knife, and I'll get those installed. So these ones are all on. Come to this bit with the thumb again. If you remember last time, I had a little trouble with it because it doesn't sit flat because of this lump here. I'm actually looking at this one, and looking at it, it looks like part of this is probably support material that is supposed to be removed. A little difficult to show on the camera, but you can kind of see a line around here and down there, and it looks like this section's supposed to be taken away. In the end there, I don't know if you can just see it, it's sort of like quite a large chunk that needs to be taken out of here. But when you look down the side, it kind of goes to nothing. I can't get this off. I don't know if this is support that Cura has added or whether it's designed into the part, but all I'm going to do is a similar thing to what I did before. I'm just going to grind a little bit away with the Dremel, possibly grind a little bit off here as well, just to make it fit. Okay, I've decided not to glue on the fingertips. I'm not happy with the way the glue has glued the knots onto the end of the fingers. I think I'd rather do it with the fishing lines under a bit of tension. So I'm going to leave that until we install the hand onto the forearm, which is a shame because I wanted to get the whole hand finished for this video. It's just a little shame we haven't got the fingertips on. I'm just looking at these finger covers because this will be the last thing to do. I'm just going to glue these finger covers on. These two here, are quite nice fits. Even this one down here, if you do just get it in the right place, it's not a bad fit. But same as last time, this one here, the angle just seems a little wrong on that finger. It's a little difficult to film, they keep falling over. So it's kind of same story as last time. The angle on this one just seems a little bit off. So I'm not going to worry about it too much. I'll try and correct it slightly by filing this edge off a little bit, but yeah, maybe I don't know what's going on with that one. It just seemed to be the same as last time, just not quite as good a fit. So I'll get those glued on and then we'll be done. So just one last thing to mention, because I think it's quite an important step that I do. I don't know if anyone else does this, but I do just file off the edge of these pieces here on the fingers, because I find the finger covers catch on them when they open and close. So I just sort of chamfer the edge off. So that's the finger covers all glued on. They didn't turn out too bad in the end. These two here are not quite right, but it's as close as I could get them. Whereas these two are quite nice. Shame we didn't get the fingertips on, but I wasn't happy with how they're glued. Look, they're still moving around, so I need to get those glued properly. I think I need to just get the cables under a little bit of tension whilst the glue goes off. So we'll leave those until we attach it to the forearm. So I think that's about it for now. They're all working quite nicely. If we give them a pull, we see they come up quite nicely. Go back down again. So I'm quite happy with how it's turned out in the end. Seemed a lot easier than the first one, and I think the quality's turned out a little bit better as well. That's mainly due to the better printer that I'm using now. So we'll call that it. Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, then please give me a like. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and I'll see you next time.